Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Your Next Business Bestie. My name is Jenn Hart, and I'm your host. This week, I have a very special guest, my friend Hannah. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Hi, Jen. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Excited to have you on the podcast. We've been talking about this for a while, so
I
finally.
know. Finally. I'm glad I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Hannah and I met, I don't know how many years ago now, but a few years ago, like 21 or 22, I think, through Diana Davis's Camp Clarity. And then did we do Ascend together too, or just Camp Clarity?
I think just came clarity. Yeah.
Camp Clarity. Okay. And I've talked about Diana a lot. She's been on the podcast. But since then, Hannah and I have worked together. I went to her retreat last May, which was absolutely magical. And she's just an all-around stellar human. So, Hannah, why don't you tell everybody what it is that you do?
Sure. Okay. So my name is Hanna Finissi. My business is called Soul Trust Ignite. And my mission is truly to ignite the inner wisdom that resides in all of us so that we can live purpose driven, joyful lives. And I do that in a couple of different ways. Everything that I do is really through the lens of getting to know yourself. So lots of introspective growth modalities and tools, and interactive community connection with other humans, which can really inspire a lot of how you are showing up, inspire how you get to know yourself. And so I do one on one life coaching. I have a personal growth membership, which we'll get into more, which is my newest project, and I'm obsessed with it. And I also host retreats and do pop up workshops here and there. So that's the quick and dirty.
Very cool. Breathwork journeys and
Oh, yeah.
meditation. And yeah, I know Hannah's business very, very well. So this is unique because I really know your business inside and out. So this is cool. But let's go back because, as I often say on this podcast, I am sure 12-year-old Hannah was not like, I am going to grow up and offer breathwork journeys and have a wellness membership. So, how did you get here? What was that journey like? Take us through some of your story.
It's so funny you asked that because just what popped up into my mind was at our wedding, my mom brought a little booklet that I had made in middle school about my future. And I'm gonna have to find it and take a picture and send it to
Please.
you because it's kind of wild. It's like the whole premise is all about like, I know I want to help people. I don't know how exactly I'm going to do this, but like I feel really excited just about helping people, like do what they want to do, be their best selves. And so in so many ways, if you asked me when I was
Yeah.
12, are you going to be a life coach? I'd be like, absolutely not. But I think those seeds were planted pretty early on that I want to do the best that I can do to show up as the best version of me so that I can support others in showing up as the best version of themselves.
That's really cool. What did you go to school for?
I was a double major in English and in studio art. And then right after school, I went into teaching through the Teach for America program and was teaching middle school special education math, which
I did not
was
know that part. I did not know that
really,
you did Teach for America or that you were teaching math after being an English and studio art major.
yes. So that was a crazy learning experience and grew a lot. Um, in so many ways, I loved my experience as a teacher. But what I loved the most about it was the relationship building capacity of getting to know my students, getting to know the families, really building and being a part of a school community, which is super unique. and can be really magical if
Yeah.
done well.
And I think it's pretty easy to see how your history of teaching has come into your business. But another really important part of who you are is an athlete. So tell the audience a little bit about your history with athletics and how that's kind of led into your business, especially with the membership.
Yeah, absolutely. From Oh, everything just went blank. Are you still there?
You're still here. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, it did a weird thing for a second, but we're good.
Okay, we're back. Let me unplug that screen. Okay, athletics. So from a super young age, I have always loved sports, fitness. I was like the freak in fourth grade that would get really excited when we got to do the running tests and all of that. I found such like a happiness and joy in moving my body in the competitive environment of sports and especially being on teams. I loved being on teams and working together for a common goal. And as I got older, I kind of had to make some decisions of okay, what sport am I going to decide on? What basket am I putting my eggs in? And and honestly, I feel like as I got older and older, like the pressure of the sports and the performance aspect of it got more intense and higher stakes. And so I ended up, I was a three sport athlete in high school, ended up walking onto the Division 1 lacrosse team at Colgate after taking a year off, which was the coolest experience to be able to be a part of that team, to be able to be like in that training regime that was really intense. Um, any of you listening that know what it takes to be a Division 1 athlete is a full-time job
Yeah.
um, on top of being a scholar and trying to have a social life and all of this and that. But I really did still love sports and I loved the team. But my mental capacity, I didn't have the tools and techniques that I do now. And what I mean by that is really the mindfulness and visualization tools to be able to talk to myself before showing up to an early morning practice, visualize how I wanted that practice to go, how I wanted to feel throughout the practice. I really did let anxiety and fear take over. And so my hope is really to like infuse those early wonders of sports and athletics and being outside and being with teammates and the drive of what it takes to show up and what it takes to be an athlete into the personal growth and development space, which for many can seem a little bit more feminine or flowy without strategic goals or benchmarks. And so, because of my experience as an athlete, I feel very passionate that like I have this patterning within me that I am very passionate about bringing into the personal growth space because I know that it works. And I have seen when I didn't have those tools and
Right.
capacities. And ultimately, your performance tanks and you're not happy. And so, what happens when we combine those two worlds? And that's kind of the birth of Athletic Soul Collective, which is my now personal growth membership.
Before we dive into the membership too much,
Yep.
let's go back again. How did you go from Teach for America, teaching middle school math, to entrepreneurship? What happened in that space between?
Yes, great question. Lots of, I would say, lots of baby steps that have all trended in a similar direction. They didn't really make sense at the time, but now when I look back, I can really start to connect the dots and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, added on a year of teaching first grade. I wanted to really see what that felt like, see if that was going to move the needle for me. And I ended up getting my master's in curriculum and instruction, which was a great experience. I'm really grateful to be able to have had that experience to get that master's while I was teaching. It was a lot, but it was totally worth it. And when I was done with teaching in Denver, I actually moved down to the Bahamas and I taught at a semester study abroad program called the Island School, which was a very different, very cool learning environment where students would come from high schools all over the world, but mostly from the US for a 100-day semester. And it was all place-based learning, a sustainability focus. I was teaching the environmental art curriculum, which was very cool. Lots of like based on what natural products can we use? How can we make our art ephemeral? And it was just a totally different experience of being incredibly present in this community. And I absolutely loved it. And there are parts of that that I really miss. I think number one is the relationships. You get so close with the people that you're working with the students that you're working with. And from there, I moved back to Boston, which actually I'm originally from, just outside of Boston. And it was kind of then that I was like, okay, time to put on your big girl pants and buckle down and figure out like what we're really doing for our life here. And
What do you want to be when you grow up?
exactly, yeah. And I was like, okay, I guess it's time to move home. I was just kind of following this patterning that was really familiar to me and that I had seen friends do. And so I just thought that was normal, right? That's what I quote unquote should do because that was the next step. And I started working at actually a very cool nonprofit where I was director of engagement for a network of 40 schools in rural Haiti, which was really intense.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
a very cool learning experience, but so much of the time I was like, wow, I might be a little over my head here. But was able to connect with again some amazing humans. But I think personally at that time in my life, I was like very lost. And I didn't, I was reaching for everything else outside of me to give me answers, to tell me who I was, to tell me what I should do next, to tell me what my next job should be. Like all of these external factors. And when I was able to get to a place where I said, enough is enough. Like I am feeling like on the verge of coming into a pretty depressive state. My heart is heavy, my anxiety is really high, and like I'm ready to take the reins. I'm ready to lead the way. All I wanted was to be able to trust myself. But I just didn't have the tools. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what to step into. And so I just started with a little bit of everything. I hired a coach. I went to retreats. I'm super lucky to have one of my main mentors is my aunt, who's a spiritual leader and runs an amazing staffing company in Boston. So she was really helpful and supportive to me during those times to just work on myself, which sounds like a loaded question, but it's exactly what I needed to do to equip me with a compass of like, okay, where am I headed?
How did you end up? Well, side note, Hannah and I both have East Coast roots. Hannah actually lived in Maine for a short time, and now you're in Montana. So, how did you make the move from East Coast to Montana? When did that happen?
So that happened right after COVID. When I had moved back to Boston, my my long-term boyfriend who I was dating in Denver, and then we broke up for 2 years. When I moved back to Boston, I realized, like, oh man, he's the one that got away. I think I really would love to step back into a relationship with Anthony. And so that began, and he was living in Vermont at the time. So that began a correspondence between us, which, spoiler alert, now we're married and expecting a baby in June, which is the best. But that was kind of our rekindling period. And then we decided to move to Maine together to kind of try out something new, open a new chapter together. It was COVID, so I could get back to Boston easily for my job. He could get to Vermont easily for his job, should we need to. And so we were in Maine for about a year and realized that our heartstrings were just pulling us back out west. And so we literally packed up a U-Haul with as many things as could fit. A lot of things couldn't fit, and we literally just left them in our apartment and was like, I hope the next person will enjoy this couch. And that began our Western pursuit. We landed in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for a bit as we were deciding where we wanted to be full time, and landed on we'd love to be in Bozeman and the surrounding area. And now we live in Manhattan, Montana, which we fondly call the little apple of the West, town of 2000. And so far, so good. We've been here for about 3 years.
So funny that pull to go west. And I similarly just packed up whatever. I had one of those like moving pods, and I had
Yes.
my little Dodge Dart, and it was whatever I could fit, and everything else it stayed with my ex or went in the trash, and that was it. Um, Montana is beautiful. I don't know if I've told you this story, but I had been to Montana one other time before I came to see you last year. My church group growing up, they were doing a mission trip in Wyoming on one of the reservations, but I wasn't old enough to go. So mom and I drove them up, went to Yellowstone, went to Teton, and neither one of us had been to Montana. I was 12, I think. But we drove across the border into Montana. went to a McDonald's, got a sweet tea, which ironically I'm drinking a McDonald's sweet tea right now, and then drove back to Wyoming. And that is the only time I had been to Montana
You're
until
like,
last
check,
May.
we
Yeah.
made it to Montana.
Yeah. But then when you and I met, and I met so many other people from Bozeman, I was like, I really have to make a real trip to Montana because McDonald's does not count. And Bozeman is just incredible. That whole trip was amazing.
Ugh,
But
I
yeah,
need to do it
let's
again.
dive. I know the whole time I was there, Montana for me really reminded me of what I love about Colorado, but some of what I love about Maine too. I felt like there was more color in Montana than we get in Colorado. It's one of the hardest things for me is the lack of water. I have a kayak that just sits around most of the year
Mm.
because there isn't a lot of water here, and the lack of color. And I felt like I found both of those in Montana. So, I'd love to bring Lainey up to go to Yellowstone too. I think that that would be a fun trip.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
It's only a 6 hour drive, I think. So it's really not that bad either.
Yeah, that's not bad. You'll have a new baby to visit soon, anyways.
Yes. Yes, that would be so fun. Yeah, we'll have to make that happen. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what you offer. And I think one piece that you offer that a lot of people have never heard of are breathwork journeys.
Yep.
And this is a newer offering for you. But tell us how you got into it, what that certification was like, and what people can expect when they do a breathwork journey with you.
Totally. Yes, I have become obsessed with the modality of breath work, with all of the science behind breath work. It is an incredible resource that every single human has unlimited capacity to use. And we don't know how to maximize the power of our breath. And so, the way that, well, I guess I'll back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about my entrance into breath work, which is kind of funny because what I would say this was probably, I don't know, over 2 years ago at this point. And my husband was away on a hunting trip for the weekend. And when he's gone, I'm like, okay, cool. What like weird stuff can I get into this weekend where he's not going to be watching me or judging me or saying like, what the
I
hell are you
feel
doing,
that.
Hannah?
I so feel that. RJ's like, what are you doing now? Don't worry about it. Just don't
Yeah,
worry about it.
don't worry about it. And so for whatever reason, a breathwork journey kind of came into my space and I was like, okay, let's try this thing. I've been resistant for quite some time, but it feels appropriate that I dive in now. So I hopped in. It was like a virtual journey led by Brian, who's the founder of Breath Masters, where I eventually got my certification. It was a virtual journey. So there was probably like 200 people on this call, which was
It's
wild.
amazing.
Yeah. And so he's explaining it, and then we get into the journey itself, which is a curated playlist along with some coaching throughout it. And the first half of it, I'm like totally resisting. I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm not into this. I should just turn this off. You know, the mind starts going and you're just like resisting any change or anything that is not normal for you. And then halfway through, Brian said something along the lines of how you do something is how you do everything. And I felt immediately called out. And I was like, okay, fine. I guess I will commit. And so I actually started breathing, following his cues, like being present with the breath in my body, and ended up having a super transformative experience, which I really was not expecting. So after that journey, I thought two things. Number one, I need to do more of this for myself because that just unlocked some really interesting stuff that I did not know was stuck in my body, stuck in my
Mm.
subconscious. And number two, I need to learn how to do this so that I can incorporate this into my business as as a branch for clients because this is a really powerful modality. So that's exactly what I did. I hopped into the Breathmaster certification training and ended up being probably a 6 or 7 month process from the beginning to end of going through the weekly trainings and then going through um, practice journeys with folks that I would send in to get observed and get feedback. And after that, I just pretty much opened up my books to individuals who are curious to hop into a breathwork journey to learn what it's all about. And those first couple months, it just like really started taking off. People were really curious. People were hopping in. People were, learning about it through other people who had done a journey with me. And now it is a foundation of my business. I'll do one-off coaching calls with people, which is basically a 90-minute call where we have a 45-minute breathwork journey followed by life coaching and integration, where we get to discuss kind of what came up, how's that sitting with you, and what's our action plan forward, right? I think that's a critical step that I could go down a whole nother rabbit hole on this, but just the wellness industry in general is really missing this like integration piece
Yeah.
of having an experience and then how are we translating that experience into our life outside of that experience. um yeah, so do you want to know a little bit more about like what makes up a breathwork journey?
Yeah, I'll pause for just a second and share my two breathwork journey
Oh yeah.
experiences. And I had no idea what a breathwork journey was before the retreat in May. And I'm not sure, I don't think I even really looked at the agenda except for like my involvement on the background of the retreat. I was like, whatever we're going to do is going to be great, whatever. And so it didn't click in my mind. Um, so my first one was at the retreat in Bozeman, just outside of Bozeman, technically, right? Isn't
Yep.
Bodie far? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sank into it. And I think I normally would have been like you and been really skeptical because, like, with even like Reiki and things like that, I'm like, do I really believe this is a thing? But I think it's such a testament to the community you've created. Like, I think somebody even said in regards to the Athletic Soul Collective, like anything Hannah provides, I'm going to try it. And that's just such a great representation of how much trust you have built in your community. And this podcast is all about community and the people we bring in. And you've done such a great job cultivating these people that one want to support you in no matter what you offer, but also they trust that whatever you bring to them is going to benefit them. So my first experience, and I still haven't totally figured it out, but I don't remember what we were doing in the breathwork journey, but I pictured an older woman who I did not recognize. So it wasn't
Oh
like my
yeah.
grandmother came to me. It wasn't a recognizable human, but it was definitely like ancestor based, I'm going to assume, who came up and tapped me on the shoulder. And I had never had that experience where I got such a strong visualization. And I've been doing a lot of child wound recovery in the last 2 years. And I think that that could be part of it, kind of that motherly ancestor figure.
Mhm.
But that was so cool. And then when you were finishing up your certification, my friend Megs and I did one with you. Um, and unfortunately, my ancestor did not come to visit me that time. But I remember Megs had this thing happen with her hands during it. And she actually said she did another one with you that I wasn't on, and the same thing happened. So it's such a uniquely personal experience. But another piece is the music. even when I hear the songs now that were in the breathwork journey we did at the retreat, it brings me back to those feelings.
Mm.
So I think the music is such an amazing part. But yeah, break down the different parts and like what the experience of a breathwork journey is overall with our listeners, knowing that it is a deeply personal experience.
It is, yeah. And I'm so glad that you named that. I think my approach to breath work is that you, as the participant, are fully in the driver's seat. You are in charge of your own journey. You are in charge of whether you choose to follow my breathing guide or not. And I think that gives people such a permission slip to say, oh, okay, I really can take this at my own pace. Hanna is here as a loving guide and facilitator, and this journey is for me. I always encourage people to kind of find that threshold where they're stretching themselves, but we're not going into panic mode, right? We get to avoid that. And we're also not just taking a nap. And so finding that threshold where you're going to experience a little bit of discomfort, right? The middle section of all my breathwork journeys is called active breathing. It's called a million different things if you have taken another breathwork journey with another facilitator. Holotropic breathing, concentric breathing, circular breathing. And so that middle portion is really intended to activate and open up all of your energy centers. We have stuck and stagnant energy and emotions and memories that live within the body that we are not conscious of. So the power of the breath is the invitation to, through a conscious breathing technique, which is basically a double inhale and an exhale, right? You're inviting a concept called super oxygenation into your entire body, which is a new experience. It's probably the most amount of oxygen that your body has ever received, which is why you have a lot of these intense physical and emotional symptoms. And it really does, when we are activated through conscious breath work, our prefrontal cortex or our monkey mind turns off. That is that voice inside your head that's constantly judging you, that's constantly asking you why you said that stupid thing, or why you wore that thing, or why did you even try to say hi to that person, right? Like when that is turned off, we get to breathe, we get to trust our body, and we get to access the subconscious, which is essentially the computer system, right? The back-end computer system that is being coded to dictate how you show up in your life every day. But without turning off the monkey mind, we don't know what our coding is. So through breath work, we can do some really purposeful rewiring back there in the subconscious through limiting beliefs, through patterning from childhood, from memories, from suppressed emotions, from trauma, all of these things that get stored. And then we figure out a way to show up. Okay, this means this, right? Even if it's something really small, can change how you show up in your day-to-day life. And so that middle portion is the active breathing. That's where we really get things stirring within. The beginning and the end of all of my breathwork journeys, we do belly breathing, which I'm sure you're familiar with some type of belly breathing. It's essentially the emphasis is on that inhale, and then the double emphasis is on that exhale, which activates your parasympathetic nervous system, signaling safety in your whole body. So we start there, like you are safe to be here, you are loved, you can step into this journey exactly as you are. And then we also end there after we've done the work, after we've done that activation energy work. And that's where a lot of emotional release happens, is in that time, because you're able to say, like, wow, all this stuff came up and I'm safe, I am loved, I have the power and capacity to heal myself from the inside out.
It's beautiful. We could probably talk forever about all of these things, especially like the integration piece, but I want to make sure we can deep dive into the membership, which just launched beginning of February.
Yeah.
Because we didn't even talk about meditation, meditation lab, all those things, but people can find that on your website, which I designed and is by the time this episode's up, will be 100% done, which is so
Yes.
exciting.
Check it out. It's stunning.
And but maybe we'll have to do a part two where we can deep dive some other things. But let's talk about the membership because I remember we'd stayed in touch after we worked together, but then last fall you're like, Jen, I want to launch a membership, and that's how we started working together again. And I don't think I'd ever really heard you talk about specifically a membership before. We had talked about other ways besides one-on-one for you to get your work out there. But where did the inspiration come to create this membership? And then tell our listeners about the Athletic Soul Collective, what they'll get out of it, cost, all of the things.
Totally. Yeah. So the inspiration came out of a personal desire to find something in the personal development space where I could tap into a consistent cadence of tools and resources that were freshly curated, right? I'm not going into some vaulted library of 100 things to choose from and everything from heal your inner child wounds to X, Y, and Z. Like that feels really overwhelming to me
Yeah.
personally. And I just wanted a roadmap, to say, okay, here's a menu of personal growth tools and resources that will set you up for success in being the best version of yourself, in getting to know what are my personal unique desires, setting goals from that place, not from, my neighbor Mary is running a marathon. I guess I should do that this year. Like that is not in alignment. And so I said, okay, I guess I'll just create it, knowing that it would be a really powerful tool for so many others. And for so many of my past life coaching clients who are like, what am I doing now, Hannah? What are my resources? And even past retreat attendees of like wanting to plug into my spaces, but I didn't have that obvious landing pad for folks who were not ready to step into a life coaching container, or maybe had already done so. And just to have that really welcoming portal where you're getting a ton of resources and you're also getting a roadmap where you're not overwhelmed with decisions.
Mhm.
Even hopping into one of the meditation apps, there's a trillion meditation apps these days, and that can be really overwhelming. Like, what do I choose? How do I know? And so my whole goal is to just give people a flexible framework where you get one meditation a week,
Yep.
you get one set of reflection questions, you really get this community of accountability, and we set you up for success together with these introspective tools, with reflection, and with goal setting resources.
Talk about the soul print because that's part of the goal, and I think that's such a unique piece. And some of the members said that that's been their favorite part so far. So tell our audience about the unique offering of the soul print that you put together.
Totally. Yeah, the soul print is a tangible crest that is custom curated for each unique individual. You create your own. I give you the template. And the idea is that you get to create who you are using what inspires you, using your core values, using photos, pictures, quotes, songs that inspire you, um, colors. And so I provide a guided meditation visualization that members listen to before, and then they get to step into their soul print creation process, which is it's like your vision board for the year meets your word of the year, meets your goal setting for the year, all wrapped in one. And what I love the most about it is that you are creating it for you. It's not a template that you can go download and say, "Oh, I'm a projector in human design. That means
Yeah.
I respond in this way." There's so much value to those different iterations, but there's also so much value in like curating and choosing who you are right now, who your favorite version of you is, and who you want to be. And
Yeah.
so using that soul print and our core values that are in there, then we set our aligned goals for the year from that. So every member, when they come into the membership, they get a free coaching call with me to make sure that we have their soul print custom curated, ready to go, because that's a foundational tool that we'll reference throughout the year in the membership.
Very cool. And the membership kind of runs seasonally. There's a different theme for every month, which I love, kind of creates a framework. But give a rundown of everything that's included in a month of the membership or what people can expect in a month of the membership.
Sure. Yeah. So um, curated seasonally, every month has a different theme that reflects what is happening in our external environment and how that might inform what is possible or what is happening in our personal or internal environment. For example, the theme of April is planting seeds of intention. And so we're stepping into spring, we're stepping into the fertile soil of spring. We're like thawing out from winter hibernation. And so this is our opportunity to do some recalibration of, okay, what am I ready to let go of? What am I intentionally choosing to plant seeds so that I can grow in those areas this spring? And to kick off the month, we have a breathwork journey that is always custom curated to the theme. I work really hard on the playlist. Like Jenn says, I think that speaks a lot to the outcomes from these breathwork journeys. And again, people love these playlists. They listen to them in their cars, they listen to them on their walks, and it's just a great reminder. So we have a kickoff breathwork journey, and then every week you have a new weekly meditation and set of reflection questions. Ideally, you're doing that 10-minute meditation every day. But again, that's up to you to create a cadence that works for your life. And then we have a reflection circle at the end of the month. That's our second live call, which is an opportunity to take a little review of the prior month. What was energetically enhancing? What was energetically draining? Where can I make some tweaks as I look ahead to the upcoming month? Planting those moments for reflection consistently throughout is very important to me. I think if we're not, you just continue to bulldoze through life, expecting things to show up or look differently without making some conscious changes. And then seasonally, we come back to our soul print, we come back to our annual goals, and we have a seasonal goal setting workshop where we take inventory, right? It's kind of a seasonal checkpoint. How are we feeling with our soul print? Do we need to make some changes? How are we feeling with our annual goals? Do we need to make some changes? And we allow ourselves to evolve throughout the year, which I think is also really important because it's not just about setting your soul print for the year. This is locked in. Setting your annual goals. This is locked in because we evolve as humans, just like the seasons. Like humans are seasonal and life changes. Things come up. Maybe you're training for a marathon in the fall and you break your leg in the spring. That doesn't mean you're giving up on your goals. We just have the opportunity to readjust and make some shifts.
Very cool. And on the more masculine energy side, what is the cost to join the membership? When is it open for new members? Give us a little bit of that info.
Yes. So technically, the membership is open 365 days a year. I have opened up specific welcome periods, which are seasonally. So within 3 months, I'll be very open with, okay, now's a great time to be hopping into the membership to make the most of the upcoming season and all the resources that we've got in there. So yes, you're welcome to jump in at any time. And if you're waiting for the perfect time, it's at the beginning of each season. And it is $105 to join for a season. And then it's $320 to join for the full year. So definitely get the best bang for your buck if you're ready to hop in and make that annual commitment.
Cool. And I think it's important to note all of the live stuff is also recorded. So
Yes.
if it doesn't work for your schedule, you can always watch it later too, which I think is really important for people's busy schedules. All right, we have a couple minutes left, so I want to switch gears one more time to talk about entrepreneurship in general. And I warned you of my very last question, but I didn't warn you about this one. It's just what do you love about being an entrepreneur? Why are you continuing to choose to be self-employed, which is not always easy by any means?
No, it's not. It's actually hard a lot of the time.
Yes, yes, it is.
The the piece that keeps me going and that is always inspiring to me is that I get to evolve. My business gets to evolve as I evolve. And like, for example, when I got really invested and interested in breath work, I was able to incorporate that into my business. And I think that's a really unique thing with entrepreneurship is that you are running the show. And, I've had programs that I started 4 years ago that I did a couple rounds of, and then, I wasn't feeling them anymore. And so
Yeah.
I think it keeps it new and fresh because I am committed to continuous evolution and learning, and just my obsession in the personal growth space really allows me to bring all of these highest impact, high level opportunities back into my business.
So powerful and empowering that our businesses can shift with us. And it's so I get asked a lot, like Amanda, whose episode will have been live a few weeks before yours. She is a brand designer, but she's also trained in astrology, numerology, and human design. And she's like, Jenn, I can't offer both of these things at the same time. And it was the biggest light bulb moment when she realized she could, because it's
Mm.
her business. And now she incorporates your numerology and human design and astrology into her approach to your branding, which I think is fascinating. But you get to choose what parts of you are in your business. And it's not a matter of if they work together, because they do work together, because you're a human being and these are all parts of you. And that pivoting and evolving, it just, your business is a living, breathing thing right alongside you. You touched on this a little bit, but in those moments when entrepreneurship is really hard, when things aren't going the way that you want them to, when you have a bad client or your website goes down, or when shit is just hard, what is the fire that keeps you going in those moments?
I think the fire is the capacity that I have been able to build and will continue to build in trusting myself and in really knowing that however well intentioned anyone outside of me is, only I know my best path forward. And that means being open to making mistakes and having programs flop and having failures along the way. It doesn't make it easy, right? Those things are hard and make you question everything. But coming back to my inner wisdom and my trust is really the North Star for me.
It's beautiful. And Hannah, how can people find you if they want to find more about the membership, about coaching, which we didn't even really have time to touch on today, about breathwork journeys? What is the best way to find you or reach out to you for all of that?
Yes, the best way is on Instagram. I'm sure Jem will tag me below here, but I'm at Soul Trust Ignite. And please come say hi. I'd love chatting and getting to know new people on that platform. Um, in the craziness that the Instagram world is, I think it's a really unique tool in that it lets us connect, even though we're not in the same spaces. And my website is another great option that has full access to everything that I'm up to, all that I do. So you can learn more at soultrustignite.com.
And something else we didn't touch on is you do live events in Bozeman too. You have your once a month breathwork journey. So if anyone listening is in the Bozeman community, definitely check out Hannah's Instagram and website for upcoming local events. The virtual events are very special, but those local in-person events just take it up another notch. Well,
Yeah,
Hannah,
100%.
thank you so, so much. It's funny, I should have known we would talk for nearly the full hour. But we'll have to do a part two where we can dive into coaching and meditation even, because we didn't even really touch on that. Maybe after you're back from maternity leave, we can do a part two. That would be fun. So.
Yeah, I'm always down. Well, thanks so much for having me, Jen. I'm glad it worked out.
For everybody listening, if you want to find out more about what I do as a creative strategist, you can find me on Instagram at Life Jen's Way, or my email is jen@jensway.com, or my website is jensway.com. Two N's on Jen always. Thank you again, Hannah. And for everybody else, I'll talk to you next week on Your Next Business Bestie. Have a wonderful week.